You are now listening to Trans Talk with JC Best and Dina Marie.
Hi, I'm Dina Marie.
We're just talking about trans shit.
I did not come to play with you hoes. I came to slay, bitch.
Most people who are trans have been through hell and high water.
The hardest part about being a woman is figuring out what to wear.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah. We are back, baby. Oh my God. Welcome back to Trans Talk with JC Best and the beautiful Dina Marie.
Hey, boo.
How are you?
Good, how are you doing? What's going on?
I am doing great. We got a kick-ass episode this week.
We do.
We
I'm very
do.
excited.
Yeah, I am too, man. Listen, the last couple of weeks have been a whirlwind.
Definitely. Last week was something, wasn't it?
Can I just, okay, so last week we had your ex on.
My ex on, yeah.
Dina, you were so uncomfortable at times.
That was quite a surprise that she brought on the show.
What was surprising?
I don't know, that she's having a baby.
But were you mad? Like, I feel like you were mad.
I wasn't mad. It's just like a lot to like take it.
We put out a clip of.
We did. Yeah.
We put out a clip of Josiah announcing that she was going to be having a child, and you know Josiah used to be Jason.
Yes, when I dated.
You say it every
I
time.
dated Josiah before she transitioned into a girl.
You have to say that. Okay, so you dated a man, Jason, and then after you guys were dating, he transitioned. And then she, Josiah,
Is now having a baby with another girl.
got someone else pregnant.
Yes.
Just nuts. Anyway, we put that clip out, and your face was all types. It was just shady.
As if my eyes could have rolled anymore.
God, because
It was
them eyes could talk.
It was really like, wow.
Why do you think you were so uncomfortable?
I don't know. I don't know. It was just like a lot to.
No, keep it 100. Why do you think that you were like? Because you were like, yeah, you were irritated. Why?
I don't know. Because she's just not honest. She's not always honest with me. And like, I just don't think that she gives me straight answers. And I think that she tells everybody like different things.
Do you feel that you are you over her?
Yes, because I mean, she'll say that she still wants to be with me and she still wants to date me or whatever, but I'm not into that. But then she'll also say that she's having a baby with somebody else and they're together, so I'm very confused. How can you want to be with me?
But why? That's my point. Why do you care that she?
Because we had a history. Like, we did have a history. And, like, regardless of how it was or if there were bad things, like, I still loved Jason. Like, we were engaged. Like, we were going to get married. Like, we were supposed to have a baby. So, like, seeing her having a baby with somebody else, it makes me think that when she was Jason, like, we were going to have a baby. We were supposed to get married. So, it just makes my mind go back to that. That's all.
All right. Well,
I'm not saying that I want to have a baby with her. I'm just saying.
God, who would want to have a baby? All right. Well, that was an awesome episode. So, but this episode is also going to be great because we've got Fran Cisco on.
Yes, I'm very excited.
Yes, who is a trans woman that I met several years ago, and it was kind of a shock to the system because she was a comedian on a bill with just regular cisgender people, I guess you could call them, and and she's just such an interesting, fascinating person. So I cannot wait to get to this. But before we do, let's go over a couple things. First off, you look sexy as shit. Damn! I think it's time for some trans cam. Trans cam. Oh my God! Look at damn. All right, okay, a slender too. Look at that. Yes, to the camera. Go to the camera. What are we wearing today? Let's go ahead and start with the boots. These look like some hookem boots.
Yes, you said that the other time when I wore them.
Yeah.
They're not hooking boots.
Where did you get these
I
now?
got these at DSW.
Okay, so this is
They're not
DSW.
hooking boots. They're some over-the-knee boots, and they're cute.
Very nice. And what about the jeans?
The jeans are from American Eagle.
American Eagle.
We love American Eagle.
It looks like you're spread eagle right now with those dreams. I don't know what the fuck.
Get
I'm
your head out of
talking
the
about.
gutter, Jason.
How can I? I'm looking at you. And then what about this shirt?
The shirt I got it at Macy's. It's actually from Madonna's line, Material Girl.
Madonna's line.
Yeah.
It matches the hook 'em boots.
Yeah, you know.
Perfect.
And I'm wearing my little tiara.
Your little tiara, and the tiara kind of matches the shirt a little bit.
It's matching. We have burgundy. The theme today is burgundy.
Look at you matching Dominican style. All right, I like that. And that was trans. You got the peanut gallery in the background. Okay. Fantastic. All right. Well, we did have a question. We had an email here. This comes from Rachel in New York City. Okay, so we've got some local listeners, which is exciting.
Awesome.
And it looks like these are addressed to you here, specifically. It says, did you ever wake up and think, I made the wrong choice?
Definitely not. I've never felt that. I actually feel like the best I've ever felt in my life. Like in every day that I wake up, I actually feel better. Like just being able to live my true self and be who I really am. And I guess I'm lucky to have an amazing support system of great family and friends around me. But no, I've never thought that I made a mistake ever.
Do you think there are people out there who do feel that, though, that they maybe go back and forth?
There may be, but I mean, I can't speak for anybody else. I can only speak for myself, and I know that I definitely have not made a mistake.
What would you tell people who are struggling and kind of going back and forth?
I think that you just have to think and not listen to anybody else and really just listen to yourself and how you really feel. And just what makes you feel the best, because at the end of the day, like if you don't live and be your true self, then you're never really truly going to be happy. Anyway.
Wow, deep. Okay. And then it says, what would you tell your younger trans self if you could provide your younger you with advice? Wow, that's a deep question. Thank you, Rachel from New York. What would you tell your younger trans self if you could provide your younger you with
I don't
advice?
know. I feel like I've always
Don't go to the club as much.
lived my life. Part of me wishes I transitioned earlier, but then at the same time, I feel like I wouldn't have met a lot of the people that I met. So, I mean, I just would have probably tell myself that it's gonna get better and it's gonna be great, and you just have to just keep being yourself and keep your head high, and that's all that you can do.
That's really interesting because the guest that we have on Fran Cisco transitioned later in life. And I'm really curious to see if she thinks the same thing, that she would want to transition younger.
Right.
But you're saying you're good with it. You're glad it worked out the way it did.
Parts of me wishes I could have transitioned earlier, but no, I mean, I'm happy with the decision that I made.
Okay, great. Well, those were questions. Again, thank you, Rachel. If you guys have questions for myself or Dina or just us in general, please forward those questions to
transtalkradio@gmail.com.
transtalkradio@gmail.com. So you can take those questions. Okay, great. I really want to get into this interview. Before we do have a segment here that we do on a weekly basis that is a staple to this show called Dina's News, picking up some of the best highlights and cultural and political things going on in the trans community. Dina, I'm going to kick it over to you. What do you have for us this week?
Okay, we have a few stories. The first one is that juvenile detention centers are actually struggling with trans inmates and where to place them.
Wow.
And where to put them. They're like ill-equipped, and the trans kids are actually vulnerable to bullying and sexual assault, depression, and suicide.
They don't have transgender units?
They don't. They were putting them in like solitary lockup, and then they were sending them to lockups based on anatomy and not gender identity. And that they can end up suffering psychologically and getting picked on by other inmates and also staff members of the correctional facilities, which is really awful.
That the employees of the jail are assaulting trans. Okay, of course.
Yeah, which is really awful because like if you're there, like even if you're in jail, like they should still like be protecting you.
Of course.
And they were putting them in solitary confinement, which also isn't really fair because then they're being locked away.
Right.
For what?
For being different. Where is this article coming from? Where's this news coming from? Do you have a source? Okay, well, we'll edit this out. That's fine. Well, that's too bad. That is really too bad to hear that. What's next?
Next, well, no, wait. The Justice Department did issue a reminder last spring that they are supposed to take into account factors of danger and where the people would be the safest. So they should, a lot of jails, I think, are starting to have like trans units. And I think like Josiah was talking about that last week when she was on the episode.
Yeah.
She was in like a trans unit.
Yeah, well, it's important, especially if you're going to be.
It's very important. Like if you're, you have to be able to be safe. Like even if you're locked up. Like,
It would also be good if we could, get down to the, issues of why these trans kids are ending up in, these situations in the first place.
They're probably confused, and there's probably a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
That is pretty heartbreaking. Okay, well, thank you. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, there's a thing called Childline, where like kids can call up anonymously, like with their problems, and it's hitting record numbers of trans youths calling in.
Wow, what is it called?
Childline.
Okay, and this is for anyone who is.
It's for anything that children can call it. It doesn't even only have to be for like trans issues. I think it could be anything that like children are dealing with. They can call, and it's an anonymous thing, which is it's confidential. So that's part of the problem is they don't keep records on each individual child, and it's possibly some have called multiple times, but the numbers have pretty much like doubled.
Wow.
In the 2015 to 2016 period, 2,796 calls based on gender identity.
Do you think there's more trans people, or do you think just there's
I
people?
think it's just more coming to light and more people are comfortable talking about it. And that's compared to only 1,299 in the previous 12 months.
Wow.
So it's practically almost double.
Good that there's resources.
Yeah, they feel it's rising because it's come more to the forefront and stuff like that.
For sure. Okay, well, that was Dina's news.
Yeah.
Thank you so much here. We actually have someone bringing in a little bit of artwork that we are going to go ahead and place right in the front there. I'm so excited.
Me too.
About our guest today.
Definitely.
This is wonderful. I met this performer a couple years ago in Yonkers at a show, and she was so funny and just kind of a ball of energy. And I'm so excited to have her. She's an artist, she's a comedian, she's an all-around entertainer, performer, parent. Dina, we've got trans Fran Cisco on the show.
I know I look great in something skinny. Free my inner woman and be true to my soul. But I ain't giving up my Peugeot. Oh no. I ain't gonna be here.
Oh, good. Well, grab your mic. We want to hear everything that you said. You look fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Look at the blue.
I love it. You like the blue?
We like the blue.
I didn't know whether it was too dark or, you know.
She does. No, it's perfect. You said the arms are out. Yes.
And then we decided take the sweater off, right, and show the arms.
That's true. That's
I
true.
think my arms are too muscular. I'm so worried about it.
You know, it's like
I'd
you're
like
like.
to tone at mine a little more.
Yeah, I think we could all tone up our arms. You kind of remind me of like a white Angela Bassett. How about that?
Wow, what a compliment. What a compliment. Wow.
Did I hit that on the head?
Wow.
You look fantastic.
You know?
We love Angela Bassett's arms. Fran, we are so happy to have you.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here.
God, well, that's right? Didn't we meet
it's been so long.
a couple years ago?
2-3 years ago.
You
I
are.
think Frank Pellegrino had a show.
It was a Noma comedy show up in Westchester, and
There were like 85 comedians on it.
yeah, exactly, probably like a bunch of comedians, no audience. But yeah, I just remember you
No,
being.
actually, there was a good audience.
Was there?
Yeah.
Was that the Ramada end?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
it
That's.
was a good audience.
I say it wasn't a good audience because I bombed so terribly. That's the only thing. I was terrible. But yeah, I just remember you being so different. You can't help but notice the comic that sticks out on the lineup. And I don't know if it was just, if it was bravery or courage, but you kind of grabbed the bull by its horns and yeah, you said some things.
I've always been very honest, and my whole comedy act is all about that, being honest and just telling the truth.
Right.
And
which kind of that song that we just introed would kind of, I would say that's very honesty.
Well, you know what happened?
Wait, what is the name of the song for
Ain't Giving Up My Brajol. And here's the way that started. So I was at another comedy class out in Long Island with Rich Walker and Peter Bales and stuff. And what they would do is you would work out some comedy material, and I was pretty fresh with it, but then they helped me with punchlines. So I told a joke that was basically, I wanted to tell a little bit about myself. My 4 grandparents are Italian, from Italy. I love Italian food. I love brajol, which is a rolled meat. It's like a large sausage. And then
this is Italian, right?
And they gave me the punchline. Say this, they said. They said, as much as I transition from male to female, and I'll be standing up and I'll cover my crotch and say, I ain't giving up my brajol.
Right.
I'm going to keep that baby. Could come in handy someday. Or come in hand.
Hilarious.
So
as we found out in our last episode, because our last episode we had Dina's ex on, Josiah, and she kept her brajol and she impregnated her girlfriend.
Oh, wow,
Yeah,
right. Oh, I saw a clip of
Yeah.
that. I saw a little clip of that. And she was, and she's now going to raise the child, right?
She is. She's
That's
going to
right.
raise the child.
Yeah.
And,
Well, so.
Yeah, we think the song is very funny, very cute. I found it interesting because me and Dina were just having an argument last night that we are not, or straight adjacent or whatever you call us, people who are not trans are not allowed to ask questions about private parts.
Well, you know
this
what?
is a constant argument
You're not
that
supposed to ask it.
That's,
you say what now?
You're not supposed to ask it because I don't go around asking you what you have down there or how big it is.
Right.
Fair, but okay. So I'm not saying
It's not your
that.
business. The person whose business it is ours, and the person that we're with, it has nothing.
Fine, I'm fine with not asking a person, but to say that we're not supposed to just ask questions in general about.
I said in the first episode, people can always ask me questions. I don't care, but like in general,
Yes.
supposed to.
And you know what? You know why I don't like it as much? I agree with you that it's a private matter.
Okay.
And it's sort of uncomfortable. And I always get that question, like a typical transgender question is, did you have the operation yet? Like you're not a real woman until you have an operation.
Guys try to like make it like you're not a real girl, like just because they have it. Like guys will see me on dating sites.
Right.
They'll hit me up. They'll be like, "Oh my God, you're gorgeous." It says in the first sentence that
You're a
I'm
trans woman.
trans. They don't read it. They just go by my pictures. They think I'm gorgeous. They
Got
start messaging me. I assume that they've read my profile
Right.
because I've seen them look at it multiple times. So why wouldn't you read the first sentence?
Right.
And then they're like, "Oh, I read it," and then they're like, "Oh, wait, but so have you had the surgery?" And I'm like,
Yeah, it's like a deal breaker. And I don't think it's really fair. I think it gets the conversation focused on things like that. And I mean, we all love sex and sex is important in our lives and everything. But when you really come down to it, it's not as important as your integrity, who you feel you are, your honesty, what you do, how you help people, how you love and all that. So all of a sudden, that conversation, it then gets into, something about, it's just like if you don't like someone because of their, say, looks. It's important, we all are guilty of it, we all look at covers and things like that, but in the end, that's not really what the person is. And by asking that, right, especially right up front, it really minimizes the other person.
So two things. I, as a person who's trans adjacent, who has trans friends, who has slept with a trans person in the past, but I'm just a trans
Did you
adjacent.
just say you slept with a trans person? in the
Yes,
past?
I have.
God bless you.
I've slept. Do I get a?
Yeah,
I
you get
feel
like
I
a
got
gold
a star. Oh shit!
God,
I'm not
that's
supposed to
amazing.
curse. Wait a minute. This is going a while back, but really quick. Okay, so a couple things. First off, yes, Fran, I agree that the things you mentioned there are the more important things.
Right.
Okay. I feel like you are saying that, however, from a perspective of someone who's lived a lifetime, you've amassed wisdom, you know the shit that is on MTV and looks and all that stuff fades and it doesn't matter. You know that already. But if a person, if we're talking about dating and sexual desires, if they have preferences, can you be upset with them that they ask that question because it is in line with the preferences that they're going for?
No, I would be upset with them. It's just disappointing if that's the main.
I understand it is disappointing.
Yeah, no, I totally understand.
But you understand why they would say that.
Yeah,
of course.
but in an era of pansexuality,
Right.
which is growing very quickly, and also trans phenomena is exploding.
Pansexuality is 100%.
All of this whole blurring of gender, like gender fluid, is now among young people maybe even more popular than trans. Trans is taken on a different meaning instead of bigender, going from male to female, that's it, or female to male. Now it's sort of like in a middle, or enjoying the journey and not worrying so much about, getting every little facial hair and all.
Listen, in 200 years, I don't think there's going to be anything as race or gender. I think we're all going to have both.
That's
okay.
Cool, really.
And I think we're just going to be beige. It's going to be beige people with any parts. What do you want to do today? What do you want to do tonight? It's Tuesday. What do you want to do? But the reason I say this is because that song, you're very, you're very forward with the fact that you're keeping your.
Yeah, and you know why? Because I think that a lot of people misunderstand trans.
Okay.
Now, as I understand, transgender is often used in two ways as an umbrella term to encompass things like transsexual, cross-dresser, transvestite, etc.
Okay.
But it's also used as more narrowly as a person who is experimenting with a change in gender. Most people use it in a broad way. So now, for example, when I was growing up and I started having ambitions of being a woman when I was about 6 years old, but I grew up as an Italian American macho guy. There's no way that I could ever admit that,
You're getting into my questions here, so this is perfect. I'm just going to let you talk.
I didn't mean to bring
this is exactly what I was going to start with.
But when that was happening to me, I thought that I had some kind of, because I couldn't share that with anyone, that I would literally be killed.
You are 6 years old. You're in a traditional Italian family.
Right.
And you are thinking that you're...
Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in,
I grew up in Mount Vernon, in an area where 98% of the people were Italian. We had one Jewish grocer, and I think I did have one black individual in my class. We didn't have any
black individual.
We didn't have any Hispanic people. That's how it went. So
this is what it is.
We thought that, this is a long time ago. We thought that was the world.
Right.
The world was really, if you weren't Italian. And I grew up with a lot of prejudice in my family, a lot of racism and stuff. So, and also, women were marginalized. Women were not the real, even though behind the scenes they were really the decider and everything.
That's how it is. Women are the foundation of
they really
society.
So what happened in my case, I couldn't admit to it. And then finally, after my grandfather died, when I was about 10 years old, I found that and he lived in the house, I was very close with him, and I found this among a number of transgender people, is that an early death in their family triggers them to think of life as very, very short, live it as fully as possible, and experiment with ways to relieve the anxiety. So when my grandfather died, I was very, very upset with it. Also the way it was handled with me about, I was his favorite anyway.
What were your thoughts, Fran, when you were 6 years old and going into 10? What were the thoughts you were having?
My thought was that I really liked the way my friend, who's a girl, looks. And I like the way she gets different attention than me. And I like the way, at that time...
You can identify with this, Dina, too?
Absolutely.
It was a little easy. It seemed a little easier to be a girl than a guy. For a guy, everything I did, when I started playing pool, I had to be the best pool. I had to shoot the best hoops. I had to do... Whatever I did, I had a lot of pressure on me to be the best. And I thought, and incorrectly, that by being a woman, it would be a bit easier. Also, that the sensitivity that I was feeling inside of me, that I was expressing as early as maybe 10 in poetry and stuff like that, was not something to be afraid of or scared of, or if I cried, or as a guy, I couldn't do that. As a girl, life was more open. You could wear any color clothes. You could do, you had more freedom.
So you felt that it would be easier, you felt like there was an easier life, or maybe a preferable life to being a girl. But did you yourself feel inside that you were?
Well, that's my dilemma in my life, is because I am not I don't identify as much with, say, a true transsexual.
This is interesting.
Who from birth almost identifies. I'll show you a photo later. I have a friend of mine who I recently met.
Yeah, we can do that.
Who has a 9-year-old daughter, a 9-year-old trans daughter, who was a boy until a year and a half ago, and now has transitioned to female. And you look at the photo, and it's so. Now, when you look at my photos when I'm 5 or 6, I'm probably still like a boy, you know? I mean, if you dressed me up, I probably looked like a girl, but I was very boyish. I was ADHD, running around crazy like a little boy, right? But this thing about being a girl, I really felt that my life could be easier because I looked at the men and women around me. Now, I'm not getting on Italian people. I love Italian people. But in a typical Italian family, the guy is a little gruff. He's a little, hey, come make me something, type of thing to the woman. And then the woman, even though she knows that she may be smarter, she knows she may really have things together, she'll submit to that. And then there may be a little, I shouldn't say abuse, but there's a little not being as considerate, and the woman was more sensitive. And so I started identifying more with women around me than with the men around. I liked the women better. And so therefore I started actually thinking, well, maybe I could be. And then when my grandfather died, I started putting on women's clothing.
All right, so let's stop right there. Dina, I have a question for you, because Fran is saying that, she's saying that she did not identify with maybe a traditional trans person in terms of feeling like she was a member of the opposite gender from birth, which I find so fascinating. You are not that, though. You felt...
No, I mean, from the time I was a very young kid, I always felt different. I felt more drawn to girl stuff. My favorite movie was The Wizard of Oz. When I was 5, I made my mother buy me the ruby slippers. And I would wear my aunt's old Halloween outfit. She was Minnie Mouse one year, and then every day for breakfast, my grandpa would call me down to breakfast, and I would come to breakfast wearing the Minnie Mouse dress, which on me was a gown, and the ruby slippers.
How old were you?
5.
Okay.
And I would come I would walk.
Fran is envying you right now.
I would walk down the stairs to breakfast, and my grandpa is Italian. He would call me to breakfast. I would walk down the stairs to breakfast wearing this gown and these little red ruby slippers, and I would sit in front of the TV and watch The Wizard of Oz or whatever. My grandpa would serve me breakfast, and I would sit there.
They would not.
And they wouldn't care.
Very open.
Talking about a grandparent, that was the first person that I think I came out to was about maybe 7 or 8 years old, was my grandmother. And my grandmother, I'll never forget that day. I had it in my mind that every Halloween I would dress as a girl, and not really as a nurse or,
Just a woman.
just a girl,
Wow.
And so one day I went to see she lived in the same house, and I went to see her and sat down. She said to me, Frankie, she used to call me, Frankie, that's okay, whatever you want to do. And meanwhile, in my mind, it was like a sacrilegious kind of thing. It was weird, it was something that I should shun. So I sort of had the complacent, or the permission almost from my grandmother, but nobody else in my family.
But did you actually vocalize to her that, Grandma, this is who I am?
Yeah, I said, I feel really good, and she could see that I was feeling more relaxed and everything because I was so competitive as a guy. Meanwhile, I was having, maybe unlike you, Dina, you had more of a feeling of being and acting it out. I was acting out not much that way, but sometimes secretively on my own, and I had no other friends to share that with.
Acting out meaning you would dress up as a woman.
Yeah, and I find now that I'm full time since January 1, 2011, right? So it's like 5.5 years. I find that when I speak, and there's so many more people out who say were cross-dressers before, or they were living part-time, now they've gotten more courageous, and now they're living full-time. I know a lot of people, hundreds of people like that, and I find that in many cases, maybe the majority of cases, they're heterosexual men who have wives and children and lived a life as a man. And so the question of being transgender has much less to do with sexuality and also less to do with that initial growing up as a child than it does to about how do you want to live your life now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, yeah, that's how I was when I was younger. Like, I was able to do that. But then, like, I was always very androgynous and, like, on, like, the, like, cusp of it. Like, I didn't start full-time until, like, 4 or 5 years ago either. And then I only started hormones, like, 2 years ago. So
yeah, it's about the same time.
But, like, even up until
so we can compare breast sizes later.
Hilarious. I'm just going to say, like, I'm not even here. I'm just going to talk about titties. And I'm right here.
I want to get.
You're getting ahead of me, Fran. You're just bringing up so much.
I'm sorry.
So much great. Don't apologize. This is incredible. It's like fascinating.
But I gotta say this: the transition of a person from male to female, and probably from female to male, is a more significant thing in your life than, in my opinion, than anything you could possibly do because of the interaction with other people about what they think, how it's affecting them, and it's just a phenomenal thing. So I really encourage people who have any inkling of being trans that they explore that. Because in my case, I waited my whole life in order to get I should have probably transitioned 20 years ago.
I can't imagine, I understand obviously why, and I understand a lot of people, they wait longer. Like, I feel like I waited too long, and sometimes I look, and because I feel like I knew definitively, like, probably like 15 years ago, but it was a different time, and it wasn't like as accepted, and like when I talked to people, like, and I told them my feelings, like, they were like, oh, well, it's hard for you now, like, as a really flamboyant, like, androgynous person, like, to get, like, to be with somebody. Like, imagine if, like, you transition and, like, then, like, who are you gonna be with? But meanwhile, now that I have, like, there's, like, so much more attention. But, I mean, obviously, it's, like, a lot more acceptable.
Yeah, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. It's good when when it happens. Because
when it happens is the best.
That's the way I'm feeling about it. I don't have any regrets.
Fran, we're gonna have to do a lightning round because you gotta let us get to these questions because we want people to hear your answers to these things.
Yes or no, and we're multiple
Not
choice.
even yes or no, just quicker. Just a little quicker.
Okay, gotcha.
Age. You mentioned coming out this late in life, and then you later said, it's actually everything worked out for good.
Right.
That's very interesting, a topic to us. We think of Caitlyn Jenner, comedian. Yes. She was fodder for a long time because, hey, you waited till 65 to make this change. What do you have to say about, and this you're in this realm, about
I wasn't
people who come out?
65 when I made the change.
Like she's not quite Caitlyn.
I'm not saying that. That's not what I meant. But what I meant is
I didn't want anybody else.
Fran Cisco is not 65. She's 35. Okay, her daughter's 32. She had her when she was 3 years old.
That's right. I shouldn't have said her.
What do you think about people who transition later in life?
I Caitlyn Jenner's transition was she actually transitioned after I transitioned. But as she got so much publicity about it and so many people said that it changed their lives, I'm saying, well, what about me? I made a change myself. Why didn't I change your life? But there was something about her fame and her accomplishments as a man and having all those children and different wives and stuff like that. I totally respect what she did. And I think people should transition. I know a number of them in their 70s and 80s right now that are transitioning. And this is, by the way, when you transition, I think I look about 10 years younger as a woman than as a guy.
Wow.
And that's one of the reasons why I tell this joke in my comedy act about this age thing, is that I love being called Miss, right, instead of man.
I recall the bit, yes.
You recall the bit?
Absolutely. Right. Marshalls, I believe you were.
Yeah, well, no, beside that bit, I mean, in CVS, right, the woman is calling me up from behind the counter, and I'm not paying attention, I'm doing my emails, right, so she's calling, Miss. Guy behind me taps me on the shoulder and says, Miss, they're calling you. And I said, oh my God, he thinks I'm a young girl, calls me Miss. The cashier thinks I'm a young girl. So I get all excited. The whole store thinks I'm a young girl. Calls me Miss. I go up to the cash register. She sees me closer up, all the wrinkles and everything, and she says, oh, CVS card, ma'am. So it put me out of, I got so startled that I accidentally went in my male voice and I said, here you go. And she said, oh, thanks, sir. So I went from the heaven of mist to the purgatory of man to the hell of sir in like 1 minute.
Hilarious. Do you like to get catcalled?
I don't mind it. If I want, I get.
It's very validating for me.
It
does. Like if I walk down the street and like construction workers or like pure straight guys like catcall me, I think that's a form of validation.
That it is a form of validation.
I am so glad y'all are saying this.
And they're just saying, "Oh, mommy, you look fine." I'm like, that is good.
Fran, I know you don't want me to curse, but I am so tired of these young pretty bitches complaining.
Yeah, right.
Complaining. Oh my God, how could you catcall me?
The complaints reduce with the age.
The complaints are gonna go away. You're gonna wish you got catcalled.
It's a validation. You know the hardest group to validation.
I'm gonna get hate mail after this.
The hardest group to pass as a female, because that validation is like complete passing, is Italian guys. I did a show with Italian guys. And I found that the way to really pass with them, or the way to know if you're passing, is if you can make them hard, But so far,
I'm sorry. You need to repeat that. Did you just say,
Make them
as
hard
a trans
person.
person,
The
if
way
you
that
can make Italian guys hard, that's how you know you're passing?
And
I'm
unfortunately,
gonna write this down.
unfortunately, with many Italian guys, the best I can get is al dente.
I got it.
You know, which is like firm, you know,
The firm
firm but
noodles.
not hard.
Dina didn't
So-
get it.
I got it. I haven't had that.
Wait a minute. Okay, so hold on. Wait, Fran.
But I'd love to be considered pretty or cute, or when someone says that to me, I really love that.
But Fran,
I
are
really
you
love that.
trying to pass? Because you even mentioned to me before this interview, we talked about your voice even, right? You said that was a thing about, because okay,
Yeah.
you know, circling back to Caitlyn Jenner, again, she was fodder for comedians, and a lot of the things people talked
Right.
about was her voice, and that she still had a deep voice. And I know we've talked about. Listen, there's insecurities there with voice.
I have insecurities with my voice.
My ex-wife had insecurities with her voice. You know,
Well,
just been having a deeper voice. That's the thing with women. So, would you say that you're trying to pass, given the fact that you did not go through a voice box
No,
surgery
well-
and you
well-
kept your voice?
Well, what I did is you know what it is, I'm just getting too confident, you know. Not being too confident.
You're killing it like
becoming-
Beyonce. Friend. You kept your penis. You kept your voice.
I'm becoming my. See, when I first transitioned, you know, on that day, January 1st, 1111, you know, a caregiver for my father, actually 2 months before, had sort of convinced me that that's what I had to do. So I had to be one person, because I was two people during the same day with different people. I was going crazy. And she said to me, you should just pick one, you know. And then in the car, when I was with her, I said, I'll pick female. And then it took me 2 months to put it in place. When I did, I brought all my clothes to Salvation Army, and that's what I did. So what I started doing is I figured, well, I gotta really work this. I gotta look better. I gotta do this. I gotta get facials. I gotta do this. So I would listening in the morning while I was blow drying my hair. It was hard to listen to. I had to put it really loud. I would listen to these CDs about how to speak more like a girl. And the way to do that is you speak in a more sing-songy way, and you go up a little bit, and you come down a little bit, and you go up, and you speak, and you turn. So I was doing that, and I was going, and then I would go out, and then people were like going like this to me, you know, like who
Like
knew
your
me.
voice was not matching your
Yeah.
appearance.
Well, it wasn't matching me for people who
Your
knew me.
essence. Got
And
it.
so then what was happening as I was different people, I was a different person. I was more ladylike. I was, you know, like that kind of thing, little, you know, more cute. You know, I used to do probably,
but I just like
right?
yeah.
used to practice with the hair, you know, twirl the hair and everything.
Get into character.
So, but then I was that way
French maid
with strangers, and I wasn't that way
with your
but people I
family
knew.
friends.
So I figured, now here it is. I was two people before. I tried to get to be one person. Now I'm splitting again.
Wow.
So now I'm much more comfortable with my own voice. And some people say, "Oh, you're a smoker?" You know, like they think I have like a smoker's voice.
Right.
So hopefully it doesn't sound that
right.
masculine. You know?
Well, the thing is about it, this is also interesting. We've talked about your voice things too.
Yeah, I hate my voice sometimes.
You hate your voice sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the times, like people say that that's the one, like main giveaway with me.
Really, I don't think so at all. You're very feminine.
But then some people don't think that. I've altered it. Like I didn't listen to anything or do anything. Like I just like myself.
Are you talking naturally right now, or is this like
Now this is just how it comes out. But I feel like I had to make it this way. Like I feel like it was a little bit deeper.
Yes.
I feel like
That's
I just got used to talking a certain way, and that this is how it comes out. And I can't even really make it deeper if I wanted to. But
you,
I feel like I didn't listen to anything. I didn't do anything. I just was just aware of it and made myself talk.
Do you intend to get the surgery, the voice box surgery?
No, I don't think so.
No.
That's not.
You know,
that's
there are
not
people
anywhere
who-
on my list, like really on my list.
many years ago,
There's
like
a lot of other surgeons.
like 25 years ago, I took these lessons. Like a bunch of cross-dressers would get together. I forgot the woman's name, Nina something. She gave these voice lessons. So you'd have 25 cross-dressers in a circle, and the woman giving us these lessons on how to speak. In addition to the CD that I used to use recently. Well, what's that noise there? That's an interesting noise there. Maybe the ghost of some of those people.
I've heard this sound before.
So it was really and walking and everything like. I think it is a good idea to try to feminize as much as possible until it becomes somewhat artificial.
Right.
And for some people, it would be artificial not to be a full female to full surgery, and for those people that's fine, and for other people I think the greater number of people sort of still keeping some or not trashing their male self, and that's what I feel like. If I was to trash my male self, there's the majority of my life that I'd be throwing away, including all of the people that I knew, all of the things that I did. And I don't want to lose that.
If you could change and transitioned earlier in life, would you have?
Yeah, I almost did about 15, 18 years ago, which is not that long ago, but I was performing burlesque. I was working on Wall Street.
Were you still married?
Yeah, I was still married. And what I was doing is I was pretty much full time, but my wife knew, but my daughter didn't know. And what I would do is when I came home from work at 10 o'clock at night, I would change on the patio outside, even in the snow. And it was such like a weird existence. And then she didn't really know. And then on the weekends I would be, and then what happened is my brother died. And when my brother died, both of my parents got sick. And I felt that if I transitioned at that point, it would be irresponsible. That's what I equated transitioning with irresponsible. And so I decided that I'd spend the rest of my life as a man, and it would be in the next life that I would be a woman. So I resigned myself to that.
Okay, so you mentioned that if you said, your words, if someone out there is cross-dressing or has an inkling, they should explore it as much as possible. I think I heard you say that.
I think so, because, yeah.
Is that the natural progression that someone who cross-dresses is feeling inside of them that maybe they are a female?
I think so, because a number of the people who I used to cross-dress with 30 years ago are either now living as trans or they're still unhappy of not transitioning.
Cross-dressing, for the people who are late members, by the way, we would call these another name is transvestite, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. This is a man who dresses up at night, usually, who lives a life during the day as a man, but at night maybe dresses up as a woman and goes out in public as a woman.
Right.
That's a transvestite.
Well, and transvestite and cross-dresser is very similar. Transvestite often has another aspect to it, like a fetish. Those people are all fetishistic. They have maybe a fetish about it. So cross-dresser is a transvestite without the fetish part of it, usually. That they could cross-dress without, red stockings or, red garter or something like that. But I know, and there are many parties. I perform at these parties, trans parties, and they're very, very good, and they're very supportive of the people. There's one called Femme Fever. It's a group mainly for cross-dressers. There's another group called CDI, Cross-Dressers International.
CDI,
Cross-Dressers International.
CD stands for cross-dressers.
Right.
Got it.
Someone's a CD. And
we didn't even put that name on our list. That's interesting, because I feel like I've seen that term CD before. Maybe on Craigslist.
Yes. People.
I wasn't searching for it. It just was there. Okay. In all of this talk with you guys, we have not really talked so much about sexuality. Dina has declared very pointedly that she is into men and dick. Dina Loves Dick. That's a good name for a porno.
Dina loves dick. Dina loves black dick.
Oh shit! Oh, she's feeling herself right now. You need another wine, Boo? You good?
Well, I thought, yes, go ahead.
But okay. So now, so that being said, you ended up getting married to a woman. You had a child, and even to this day, would you say you're attracted to women?
Yes, I'm attracted to women.
Are you attracted to men at all?
Not much. I've tried actually. Maybe not as recently, as much as before, because taking hormones, my libido is much lower.
Right.
So I don't have that. When I was a guy, I was every 25 seconds I was getting hard.
For what? For women?
For women, and never for men. And never.
I find this fascinating.
Never for men.
I think the general public
However,
assumes that you would be into men if you're trans.
Yeah, that's what the gem. But the majority is about maybe 75% of trans women are attracted to women.
How do we? Where is that fact? Where can we look that up? That's incredible.
You could look. You could really look that up. Anyway, one organization you may want to try for some research is IFGE, which stands for International Foundation for Gender Education. There are a number of, but this is the more cross-dressers and the more trans people who are more like me, who are parents, that are coming out. That's what's in these statistics now. Whereas many years ago, it was unknown that there were as many men who wanted to be women.
When you were courting your wife, when you were on the way to courting your wife, did you tell her before you got married?
That's my biggest regret, is that I didn't. And here's the reason I didn't. And I really regret that, because she may not have married me, and maybe her life would have been better. But we had a great life, and we're still married, and we intend to stay married.
You're still married right now?
We're still married, but we're not living together.
Got it.
For the last 2 years. Her mother has Alzheimer's too. She moved out and took an apartment, but my wife Lori probably was going to move out anyway, because this has been very, very difficult on her. We still love each other as soulmates and everything, but she could never be affectionate. But here's the thing about the sex part, and this I think many trans men who are not like Dina and prefer men think like. When I was part-time cross-dressing and stuff, and if I was in bed with a woman, say my wife, I would play, after a while, I would play the male role. I would be on top and stuff like that, and I would be aroused and everything. But then what would happen is fantasy would take over, and I would want to be submissive and be the female. And then what would happen is then roles would almost reverse. And there are ways, if you're creative with your body
this
parts.
Type of show, we really would like to know. Please educate and help us.
Well, okay.
You don't even have to, if you don't feel comfortable
be
saying, listen, you can be as brutally honest as you want on this show. This is what it's for. But in terms of, you don't have to speak on your personal life. But when we're talking about role reversal, you're saying that you were with your wife, were you dressed as a woman?
No. I would be dressed as a man. However, I might have shaved
my
body. I might have had on, say, an underwear that could have been either way, male or female, unisex type of thing.
Right.
And then occasionally, I would bring an undergarment into the bed.
An undergarment, like a strap-on?
No, like a slip or something like that.
Got you.
A female thing. But she was really turned off by that, so that didn't really happen often. But I would always, I should say almost always, after we were married, like maybe 15, 20 years, I would end up becoming submissive.
How do you be a submissive man with a woman? I'm thinking strap-on.
Okay, no, here's how. It's very simple, and not to get too visual here.
We want to get visual.
All right, we want to get visual. The man would lay down on his back.
Yep.
And he would bring up his legs like this,
Right.
and the woman would lay on front of him, face down, and then he would enter her.
So you're
That
still
way.
entering the woman,
Still
but
entering
your
the
legs
woman,
are up as
but
if you were being penetrated.
and the way it feels for a man, trust me on this, because I've done it many, many times. The way it feels as if the woman is entering the man. So, and it doesn't take away from the rigidity or whatever, the hardness of
Sure.
it. You can continue and fulfill
She's
the act.
getting pleasure still, because
Right.
she's getting penetrated,
Right,
and you yourself feel like you are taking on a submissive role.
right. And yet at the same time, as oddly as that is, even though I did do that and I was submissive, is I wouldn't then go one step further and be with a man and have anal intercourse. There was a block to it in my head. And there still is a block to it.
Wow.
And part of it could be my brother was gay. My brother passed away and connected to, he was HIV positive for 17 years. So I may have that like real phobia in my head about being with a man because of that. But I don't have a physical attraction. That said, because of pansexuality, and if my wife completely gives up on me, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life as a single person. I do like a relationship. If I was approached by a man and I wasn't turned off, because I'm not turned off by men, but I think if there was so much else in the relationship, I would consider it, but I'm not physically attracted.
Dina, sex talk makes you a little uncomfortable when we're on air, I find. Now, me and Dina have the most
I've only been
craziest
with men. I've never been
conversations.
with women.
Fine, but what you just heard, like, is that something? I mean, what do you think about that? Like,
I think it's fascinating to hear other people's stories, but I mean,
that's just not your
it's
cup of tea.
like I've never been with a girl ever. Like I've told you that.
Oh, is that right?
Never ever have. I've only
No.
been with men.
And she's very big on like reminding us that her ex,
My ex transitioned after her.
She said she's like a fucking robot. It's every single. She has to remind us. I was dating my ex, and she transitioned afterwards. Like she has a thing, which just the thought of you being in a lesbian relationship kind of is like a turn off for you.
Attracted to men. That's what.
Yeah.
This has been incredible. We have to let you go because I know you have other things to do. I do
It
want
was
to
great.
end.
Thank you.
You are great and so interesting, and we need people who have perspectives like yours. Who, maybe it's not as unique, but to the lay person that doesn't know,
Yes.
it is.
Yes. Right.
You created something really beautiful. We've kind of been showcasing it up here. I want to end with this. We mentioned that you're an artist in your intro, and this is something that you created. Can you just talk a little bit to
Yes.
it?
This came about because New York State has provided $800,000 for the building of an LGBT memorial, and I had submitted my design for that. It's a 40-foot high structure, and I'm hoping that people maybe can get in touch with me, and then they could show their support by getting in touch with that commission. But in the process of designing that, in meeting with design people, because that structure is made out of steel ribbons that go up 40 feet and they're 1 foot wide, I got familiar with the use of steel in structure. I'm mainly a painter, art. And then as a test, we took, with this design firm and steel firm, we took a thinner band, and I had them bend it in this form, and it's called trans-formation, and it has the transgender colors, and it looks different from every angle. We all, whether we're trans or not, we all look different, and we all are different. We have many sides to us, but this is what I tried to accomplish with this piece, is to show all the different sides. And yet, I hope it's elegant, and it's smooth, and it's flowing, and I think that's what a trans life, a transgender life is goes in a lot of different directions, and anything is possible. And and yet it still comes back on itself, like this piece.
I love it. I think it's really beautiful.
It's really nice.
Thank you. Maybe I could send you a photo of it, and you could put it on your
We will. We'll
page and
showcase it. We
everything.
love it. Thank you so much.
And can I hold up a photo of the other pieces?
Absolutely.
Hold on,
Sure.
I have it.
We can always put it in post as well, but if you want to hold it up, you can do that as well. And while you're getting that photo, Fran, where can people find you and follow you?
Great. I have. I don't have it all unified now. You know, it's all in pieces in different places. But mainly, they can go to my Facebook page is Francis Cisco, because Fran was already taken. So it's Francis, and it's spelled the male way, like the Pope spells it, Francis. And then Cisco is Sisco. That's my Facebook page. Please friend me.
Sure.
I do have a website called www.franciscisco.com. I have another site called transentertainers.com, where I've teamed up with other trans people, and we've done some singing, song parodies, and things like that, some comedy together. So those are a couple of places where people can get me. You can go there, and I don't know if you want me to give out an email address.
That's whatever you want. That's fine.
And it's franciscisco@aol.com. And I have this. Oh, here it is. Here. I'm very happy. I worked with a team of people. That's another thing about trans. And I was more of a loner or solitary. I mean, I know lots of people, and I work with other people, but I never was as confident or accepting in working with other people. Now, as full-time trans, I find that I'm collaborating a lot more in everything I do, and I really like that part of myself. So I don't know, where would I hold this like this?
Yeah, you can hold it right up to this camera right there.
Okay, so this is a
Put it in post
picture.
if it's
This
not
is
clear.
40 feet high and 25 feet at the base, and this would be right along the Hudson River at around 16th Street.
And this is your design
This is my
for that project.
For that, and they asked for a call for artists, and I had to submit a very detailed proposal and stuff. And I'll know hopefully within a month if I'm selected. By the way, the artist fee is over $100,000.
Wow.
So
Let's make some money.
So, and also, if I did win that, it would give me the ability to then spend more time as an artist, and that's what I'm really looking forward to do, and as an entertainer. So thank you so much.
Friends, thank you, Fran. We appreciate it.
And I want to come back.
We will.
Talk
Hey,
some more.
hopefully in a year or so will be a really big deal, and then you can come back and rehash some of this. And yeah, we really enjoyed it.
Great, very good. Thank you. Was there any real question that you had unanswered?
No,
That I
no,
talked
no,
too much to? No? Okay,
you're
great.
good.
All right.
Thank you,
All right.
Fran.
Thanks so much. Bye, Tina.
You
Bye,
got
JC.
And Dina and I can be reached at.
You can find me on Instagram at Fabulous Dina Marie and on Facebook, Dina Marie Martin.
And I'm JC. You can find me on Facebook at JC Best, but I would follow me with caution because I am a fool. And JC_knows best on Twitter and Instagram. This has been another episode of Trans Talk with JC Best and Dina Marie.